Hello, everyone. I'm Tay, a digital illustrator, and today I want to talk about a few things. One of the things I want to talk about is the current process I'm working on, which is creating my first animatic. Now, I mentioned a while back how I made like kind of like a mid-years, well, not really mid-year. This was back in March. But I guess quarter year resolutions. And I decided to make a few goals that I felt like were a bit more achievable with the schedule that I have currently. So, one of those goals was to create an animatic. And there were a few things that I learned for sure. So let's talk about it. So, I think one of the most important things with creating an animatic is actually storyboarding. So storyboarding essentially is the process of if you don't know what storyboarding is, it's like the process of I guess laying out your entire vision of an animation, or even I think they're used in films as well, just to get everything visually out. I believe that there's also maybe some script that's written in there for certain shots that are drawn, and then you use that as the basis for what you're creating. And so what I learned about storyboarding was it's really important to make sure that you understand what's going on and you make sure you're able to create a good flow. But mainly having that clear vision for yourself. I remember I did my storyboard so rough. There were some panels that I just didn't understand what was going on. So you don't have to create it to where it's like super duper like cleaned up or anything like that. But you definitely want to make sure it's easy to read. At least for the average person. Like if someone else is looking at it, they're like, oh, okay, I can tell what's going on here. Hell, you can probably even do it with like stickmen. But what I was doing was like, I don't know, it wasn't necessarily stickmen. It was like really roughed out figures of people that I understood at the time in which I was drawing it. But as I was creating the animatic, I was looking back and I'm like, what was I drawing? So you definitely want to make sure that it's clear for yourself. The other thing that I learned was to have some sort of organization of your layers. So I created this in Clip Studio Paint, and it's just because it's the main software that I use. And as I created a bunch of layers, I noticed that it added up pretty quickly. So I made a bunch of folders according to the frames that I'm doing. So like frame 1 is folder 1, frame 2, or not frame 2, shot 2 is folder 2, and so on. And that helped me a lot with being able to, I guess, like flip through what's going on, being able to kind of play back through what I created so far. Another thing, too, that helped a lot was having references. So it's good to have, like, real-life references. I use plenty of those. And I also use Blender in a part of my process, especially with, like, creating buildings and environments. I find that it's a fast way to create the environments that I want. I like to make sure that my characters are not suspending in space. I like to draw backgrounds with my characters. So I do use Blender for that, as well as I'll use DAZ 3D to pose my characters and I'll place them in a scene, but I won't trace. I don't really like the way tracing looks, in my opinion. For like your characters, I find that it looks really stiff. So I personally don't do that. I'll use the 3D model that I posed as a reference for what I want. Because then I can get some pretty dramatic angles that I can't really find pictures of. And now, in contrast, the other thing I wanted to bring up was drawing from imagination. I understand a lot of us nowadays, we, like in the art community, we preach, hey, always have a reference. I get it. That's great. But there's some times where you need to draw without reference. There's sometimes where you need to draw from your mind. I forgot what the artist's name was, but there was a lot of art that he created from his mind. And his work was incredible. I'll probably insert his name in. But if he can do that, we can also. So for some of the shots, in order to especially get through it quicker, I drew from imagination. It's good to use a combination of both, for sure. Because trying to find a reference for every single shot takes too long. It takes way too long. And I feel like that was the main thing that made it take a long time for me as I was creating each of the shots. So definitely like using both of those techniques interchangeably with references, drawing from imagination. And like, I know that animation takes a while, and that's the other point. I know that animation in general takes a while to produce. A lot of hard work there, right? Props to animators all across the world, because what they do is so tedious. Even creating an animatic was pretty tedious. And as you flip through the folders, it will motivate you to finish. Because at some parts, I just wanted to quit. Because it was taking so long. I'm like, man, maybe I should just do something else. But I pushed through, and I was able to motivate myself by looking through the work that I did so far and actually seeing it all come together. So it's really time consuming, but definitely worth it for sure. And that's pretty much like what I learned from creating my first animatic. I'm really happy to have done it. And firstly, because like I said, it's one of my goals for art creation this year. I understand that we as artists and musicians and sculptors and all sorts of creatives, we all want to, at least I know for a lot of people, we want to build some type of following. But I don't really think you can really control that. I do know that you can control what you create and what you put out. I think you can control that. And so this is one of the things that I do to kind of gain control back of my own art, because I find that social media, it can be pretty draining with art endeavors. So doing this challenge, it's definitely motivating me to want to create even more art, because mainly it's for my artsy side. It's not really for social media per se. If it does well on social media, amazing. If it doesn't, that's okay, because I'm at least doing the things that I
wanted to do this year. My art goals. So, and this is the set of art goals that it's challenging enough, but not impossible. The last set of art goals that I made were way too long. Way too long. And I set up some unrealistic expectations for myself. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, for sure. And some of these goals are things that I haven't made before. Things that I've always wanted to, but I just haven't. I've never made an animatic before. I played around with animation when I was little. Like, I created some stop motion videos. I wish that I had the files for them. My dad bought me a how to do stop motion book, and it came with like all these default sound effects and this little camera, and that was a fun time for sure. I've always loved animation. It's a beautiful thing. It's an amazing art form. And I have a lot of respect for animators, especially 2D animators. The other goals on my list are also a few other things that I've never done before. I'm not going to share them yet because throughout the year, I will show you. But I will say, I may or may not have another animatic that I'm working on currently. So, though the process was long, it was definitely worth it, and a lot that I learned. And with what I learned, I can get a little faster at it, a little bit. But I'm glad to be kind of back. As for my schedule, I don't know what my schedule is, honestly, with uploading. But bear with me. I do enjoy creating these videos and sharing my process and my thoughts with everyone. And I hope that you enjoyed listening to me ramble about my learnings and my thoughts and my goals. And I hope that this has helped you in either starting something new artistically or maybe goal setting, whatever it might be. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.